we started with some tag team action on this week's episode of Dynamite, and tag teaming is really fun. What? Also, my friends, it is I, Simon Miller, the Progress Proteus champion, and actually, given the episode of Dynamite this is, given the calendar, this Sunday in Manchester at the next Progress show, I will reveal what my stipulation is for this title, because that's how it works. Every single person that holds it gets to decide the rules of their match. I tell you, I've got a doozy. But enough about me, no one cares about that, although I am the same old G. Let's review and up those downs the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. That didn't work. But it was Jay White and Juice Robinson taking on Christian Cage and Hangman Adam Page, and it was explained to us, it's that whole thing when the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I am surprised that worked though, because they're still your enemy, so if they were able to shoot you in the face, they probably would. I am going to be that guy as well. Even before the match started, I was like, Juice Robinson is definitely going to take the pin here, because he doesn't actually have a proper feud. I would have bet my life on it. That's where we have to remind ourselves, don't bet your life on professional wrestling. Think how sad it would be. Everyone's crying, well, I don't believe it. Then someone goes, how did he die? He bet his life on wrestling. You're like, I ain't coming to this funeral. He deserved it. I mean, it's like getting pretend mad about wrestling on Twitter. You're just really lame. And here, Hangman Adam Page and Jay White started fighting. And of course, they're the two that are going to be fighting at the pay-per-view. At one point, Christian Cage made the blind tag, though. That's when I was like, oh no, the cowboy and the fake dad aren't going to be able to coexist. Then actually turned out they did pretty good together. Juice then entered and he smashed Christian up for a while, but he knew what to do because he threw Robinson to the outside where we had I'm Not Your Real Son, Nick Wayne, and he started like putting in some shots and he kept doing that again and again and again. I can only imagine the Hook was somewhere going, I tell you, if he does it once, fine. If he does it twice, fine. But if he does it 3 times, I am going out there and I am putting a stop to it. That's exactly what he did. The commentators are also reminding us the cowboy does have a dodgy leg. When Nick was taken out of there, Christian had a meltdown. Somebody had told him, do you know ghosts are real? He was like, what? He couldn't believe it. Robinson was then able to hit a neck breaker on the floor. When he looked over at Jay White, whose hand was just sweating, man, there was water dripping off the thing, and you know what that means? Hot tag. He destroyed Adam as well, but eventually he flipped out on a suplex, and what did he do? Dun, dun, dun. He landed on that wounded knee, and I actually think when we do get to Full Gear, that's gonna cost him. The Bang Bang Gang then went totally crazy too, because they were hitting DDTs and cannonballs. They had so much momentum, so my wrestling brain kicked in. I was like, listen to me, wrestling brain. They're doing a lot, they're gonna lose. We then got this awesome sequence because Paige went for the buckshot lariat, but Jay White got out of that, and then all of a sudden Juice was here, and he hit the big old punch when Christian was being thrown into barricade. And of course, by this point, Mother Wayne was just freaking out because she can't handle this, because not only is her fake son gone, no, that's her real son, but her fake husband, well, he was in trouble. It's a very weird system. She was distracting the referee, though, when the other fake son, Kip Sabian, turned up. He just smashed Juice Robinson with this case that has the world contract in it, or the world title contract, and he was done. Now, Paige didn't care about any of that, and he hit the dead eye, and he got the 1, 2, 3. And that's interesting, because now it makes me think maybe Jay White is going to win at the pay-per-view. We did make it very clear, though, that the patriarchy were responsible for this, and I thought it was very fun. Although we don't want to go too crazy with distractions and shenanigans, because all of wrestling has kind of fallen back into that recently. But in terms of what we were going to do here, I thought it worked well. I am giving it an up. I mean, these 4 are just great. Although, to be honest, I don't think we could have said that about last night's crowd. Now, look, I don't care about numbers, but of course I want all promotions to do well. And if you had paid your hard-earned money to go and put your butt in one of those seats, you are allowed to do whatever the hell you want. If you want to make noise, great. If you don't want to make noise, that's great too. Problem is, it's not great for me who's watching it at home from my seat. I mean, ultimately, it's the performer's job to make you have sound coming out of your voice. But throughout the evening, I just have to say, the atmosphere was a little bit lacking. And while this was a fine episode of Dynamite, well, that just took something away from it. So I guess maybe this is a personal down, but it is getting a down. But at the same time, it's nobody's fault. I mean, what can you do? It's just one of those things. All these statements can be true. Look it up in the dictionary. I don't know what that means. Renee Paquette was then chatting to Mercedes Moné, though, which was a terrible mistake, because Mercedes was so mad she had even walked up to her and said words. Now, I really like Moné, and I think she gets way too much hate online, especially because she turned to Camille, and not only did she yell at her for dropping her $20,000 coat on the floor, but she was like, man, you were meant to do a murder last week. and you weren't able to do that. Like, an attempted murder is a small thing. And in fact, if I was going to put a list together, in terms of things that would freak me out, I'd find very hard to do, attempted murder would be right up there. Kris Statlander then turned up, because of course it is her versus Mercedes Moné at the pay-per-view. And she just wrecked both of these people, and she even threw them through a wall. So I don't know who built that thing, but given that a wall mostly is there to keep a building up, well, I would not have stayed in that arena. So I would guess we gave her this here because she is not going to win at the pay-per-view, and let's make sure we do more with Kris Statlander in 2025. If you are a fan of teams breaking up, well, I would prepare yourself. I don't think Mercedes and Camille are going to be together much longer. Tony Schiavone then decided I should talk to Will Ospreay, which was very well timed, because here came the aerial assassin. Ospreay knew there were lots of questions that we needed answers to, and because Tony couldn't help him, he was like, man, you need to leave the ring. When he made sure he enforced Wrestling Rule 14.8, and he said Carl Fletcher's name, and out came Carl Fletcher. Now, Carl mentioned how Don Callis said, don't go out there by yourself, but he wanted to confront Will face to face, because unlike Ospreay, if somebody does says his name, he will come to the ring. And where was William a few weeks ago when Carl Fletcher said you should come to the ring? He was nowhere to be seen, because he was licking his wounds like a cat. He also reminded Will that if he does do anything, the family will take him out. I don't think he meant to dinner. Of course, Ospreay has been in many of these meetings, so he knew there was something else there. And he was right. He said, make sure you show me what you've got in your pocket. And it was the screwdriver. And Carl Fletcher just gave it to him. So Will threw it out the ring. It's like, well, that is the worst attempt at a crime I've ever seen. You should have still tried to do it. Ospreay then went real time 1000 as he talked about the relationship they had, saying, during the pandemic, you moved in with me, and what did we do along with Mark Davis? We made the United Empire, and we were running wild. Now, Carl totally agreed with this, because he knows Will Ospreay better than he knows himself, and he has even helped Will pick up his kid from school. But let's be honest, if you were in my shoes, you would be doing exactly what I'm doing right now, because we all know you're a selfish so-and-so. Thank goodness Ospreay picked up on that as well, because Carl Fletcher was being a hypocrite, and Will was all like, wait a minute, you say you don't want to be my clone, but now you're saying you're doing the same things that I would have done if I was in your shoes. You need to pick a damn lane. He's right. Ospreay then did admit that in the past, sure, he has screwed over the likes of Kenny Omega and Okada, but look at all the championships he has won before that, and when it comes to Mr. Fletcher, well, what have you done by yourself, unless you weren't tagging with Aussie Open? I was like, wait a minute, Will. He was the Ring of Honor TV champion, and Ring of Honor is now part of AEW, so you've just totally crapped on an entire promotion. Now, I'm sure this was a mistake, but it does have to get a mini down. Sometimes you need to think about this stuff. Carl didn't care about any of that though, because he wants a pay-per-view match with Will Ospreay. And Ospreay kind of laughed it off too. He was like, that's what this is about? You want your 5 minutes of fame on a pay-per-view? Once again, I was like, I think we should probably be treating the pay-per-view with a bit more reverence. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? Ospreay then also reminded him that he has beaten many a champion since he had arrived in AEW, and when he was watching Carl Fletcher cut that big old promo and he was shaving his head, his hand was holding his son, the other way around. His son was holding his hand, but he didn't know because his extremities were still numb after Fletcher had wrecked him with a power driver. That's a good line. Therefore, come Full Gear, he is going to end all of this, whereas Carl promised it would just be the start. Well, I have been a little bit of a silly Simon here. Actually, this was a very good segment, and they both cut really good promos, and at times I was like, man, well, Ospreay even sounds like he means it. It also has that wonderful magic Jeopardy, because really, Ospreay shouldn't lose, but Fletcher shouldn't lose either, and that's the secret sauce when it comes to wrestling. So when I am watching it, I'll be like, whoa, I don't know what is going to happen. So yeah, these two, they totally get it. Let's gang it up. Brian Cage and Lance Archer then showed up, but thankfully Will proved he's not an idiot, because he was like, man, don't be ridiculous. I have my friends too. And behind him were Mark Davis and Powerhouse Hobbs. Now they all looked at each other for a while, because this is super serious, when Will just dove at Carl and they got into it. When Roderick Strong's music started and he ran to the ring, because he was going to have a match with Lance Archer, so hell man, if I can cut some corners and get a cheap shot in there, that's what I'm going to do. This was a Falls Count Anywhere match as well, so they both totally went crazy. And we need to give some props to Lance Archer. Every time he is called upon, he always does so well. That's another one in 2025. We should give him more. He also absolutely killed Roderick here, because once again he was going to lose. And when he threw him through a table, I think the lights were off. Maybe it was my TV, For some reason, it was really dark. His friend Brian Cage ran out to help at one point when Matt Taven and Mike Bennett were here too, because of course there's pals with Roderick. But even then, Archer was just grabbing people and killing them. I really do enjoy this guy. Eventually he was ready to finish off strong as well, but instead Lance got a chair right in the face, and given they were on an outside, Roderick Strong ran in with this big old knee, and he pinned him for the 1-2-3. That must be correct because it rhymes. I do have to admit that was a little fast and a little bit out of nowhere when all of a sudden we went right into Adam Cole versus Takeshita, which also makes sense because this is the big MJF storyline. Roderick Strong just made it to 3 wins, so now Adam has to do the same. I very much enjoyed the callback to ECW here, because Adam Cole's music kept playing as they did fight. When Adam grabbed Takeshita, he threw him out the ring at the perfect moment, and he still did his pose. That's good stuff. I'm also now just going to stand and love Adam Cole forever, because people online are being well too mean to this guy, especially given what he's been through over the last 2 years. But then, yeah, he did kind of jump in midair, and Takeshita just whacked him right in the face. I was like, well, don't have to do that anymore. Adam Cole is dead. Thankfully he wasn't. Cole eventually came back with a neck breaker because everybody likes to break some necks. I think Takeshita must have gone through his move Rolodex because he chose to use the least devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the Blue Thunder Bomb. And did it work? Of course it doesn't. It never does. And then came up with this great plan that he was going to try a forearm battle, which was a terrible idea because Takeshita just wrecked him. When they just essentially reversed and transitioned through everything, and this was super duper good. When Takeshita was like, oh, you tried to Panama Sunrise, did me? He reversed it into this crazy pile driver thing, whatever you want to call it, and the lariat he hit after that. I'm sorry, but in some states that should be illegal. Cole was able to get the kick that is super in the Panama Sunrise when he was going to lower the boom again, but Takeshita sort of fell out the ring when it turned out this was a big old ruse because they had hidden MJF's Dynamite ring under the ring. There's too much ring in this sentence, so he put it on. Make sure to show it to everyone, as you would do before you're about to commit a murder, and when Adam Cole came to get him, Takeshita punched him right in the face. So that man had cheated. We then did get quite a surprise though, because Takeshita pinned Adam Cole when we cut to a reaction shot of MJF, who was just going, ha 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 ha. Listen, I've got no problem with this, but I will say, much like we did last week, when we do cut to those shots of MJF, they feel like they exist in their own separate universe. Takeshita was then showing off his weapon of choice again because he's the worst criminal ever when Roderick Strong tried to come to help out, but he totally sucked at this, because Takeshita took him out too. Kyle O'Reilly had a much better plan because he had a chair, which meant Takeshita had to leave, but he was celebrating. When Adam Cole tried to shake Kyle's hand, O'Reilly was like, no, I'm not doing it. Dun, dun, dun. So yes, good grief, a lot did happen here. But if we take both of these matches back to back, I thought they were really good. And Adam Cole versus Takeshita, I could probably watch for the rest of my days. So when we put all that in a package, getting it up. But here is the truth, and this is not a slight on any of the talent, I guess here specifically Roderick Strong, but it now means that it's not Adam Cole versus MJF at the pay-per-view, but it is Strong versus MJF. That's just not the match that I want to see. I just think we've had so much madness with Maxwell and Cole that has dated back almost 24 months that sometimes you just need to pull the trigger. Also, this story has been so confusing and convoluted because originally it was first to 3 wins, and then it was whoever got 3 wins, and it was going to be a triple threat match, but ultimately none of that matters because again, Adam Cole lost. And I do like that because it shocks you, like, oh my gosh, Takeshita got a victory. But I just don't think this was the time to do it. So yes, to me this has to get it down, and while I think MJF and Roderick Strong will have a great match, just means we're delaying Adam Cole and MJF even longer. There's no need. That's how I feel about it. I could be totally wrong. I mean, I couldn't even keep my hair, so please get mad in the comments, but down. A truck then pulled up to the arena, and of course, who came out? It was the Death Riders. They're no longer the BCC, and they've changed their name. But that did make me think, what does death riding even mean? It actually sounds like you're about to bang death. Now, the real issue, this was sold as they're going to take over the Superstation, and instead they just went to the ring and cut a promo. I mean, I think we probably should have described it as something else. Before that, too, Renee Paquette was with the Hurt Syndicate, and she was like, man, what are you gonna do, guys? And MVP didn't like that at all. She was like, I tell you what we're gonna do. Bobby Lashley is gonna take on Swerve Strickland at the pay-per-view, and we're gonna hurt him with a syndicate. They're also gonna watch his match later, because we are getting Swerve versus Leo Rush, when poor JD Drake was thrown out of the entranceway. He was meant to have a match later, but that's been cancelled because the Death Riders have killed him. The Riders of Death then made their way to the ring, and actually Riders of Death is a way better name, when John Moxley got the microphone, As always, he went totally crazy. Well, actually, he was very nice at first because he said, "I've been thinking about you, Orange Cassidy." I was like, "Oh, man, it's all going to be okay." When he said, "I've also been thinking about Chuck Taylor, who now has to drink his food through a straw, and that's all on you, Orange, because you didn't save him." Well, that's not nice at all. Moxley then said that Wheeler Yuta also belongs to him because Orange wasn't able to sort that either. I was like, man, Jonathan, you need to make up your mind. A couple of weeks ago, you were telling me, oh, Wheeler Yuta doesn't belong to anyone, and now he belongs to you? Pick a damn path. Moxley doesn't care that Orange is acting all cool either, because he is going to stomp his face into hamburger meat. So let's all remember this, people. If John Moxley ever opens a restaurant, definitely do not go there and order the burger. He also promised that Cassidy's going to be such a mess his own mother isn't going to recognize him. But that actually isn't the threat that Jonathan thought it was. Because like, if Orange Cassidy went home, but he was wearing a wig and some glasses and a fake moustache, his mother probably wouldn't recognize him then either. See? Told you. Moxley also reminded us that he had the power, so He-Man must be pissed when finally Orange Cassidy did walk to the ring. I mean, he could have done this way earlier because of Wrestling Rule 14.8. He was backed up by Rocky Romero and Mark Briscoe too because he is a smart babyface, and he told John everything you're saying is true because you are the AEW World Champion. When you're the champion, you get to control things, and you are representing the company. Cassidy was then all jokey, being like, you know, I don't like to do anything, but I have wrestled in this place more than anybody, and you know what, John? I've beaten you before, and come full gear, I'm gonna do it again. I thought it was probably the best promo Orange Cassidy's ever cut. He was serious. He then started to talk about chess, which admittedly was a little bit weird, but he did describe Wheeler Yuta as a pawn, and Wheeler was like, I am not a pawn, when Claudio told him to shut up. So, they're now going to fight next week on Dynamite, and as Moxley said, well, this will be very interesting to me, because do you have what it takes to take out your former friend? We will have to wait and see. And then looked like the Riders of Death were done, when Darby Allin just dove off his balcony because he is crazy, and talk about acting like Batman, he was even wearing a Sting mask. Of course, Mox and friends tried to get away, but Darby then jumped into the back of their truck, because once again he is insane, when Claudio became henchman 102, and he grabbed Allin, and he big swung him into the steel garage door. Man, Darby, you are just one of a kind. The conglomeration then ran in and went all Star Wars because they basically dropped to their knees and went, no. But I do have to say, I like all this stuff with Orange Cassidy. I think John Moxley's doing a very good job with it. And eventually there is going to be a big twist or a big payoff. And if we just stick to our guns, I think it's going to work. It also means now we're going to get Darby versus Claudio, I believe, next week. And who doesn't want that? Everybody wants that. It'll be absolutely brilliant. This is Get It Up. Renee was there with the learning tree, and she essentially said, Chris Jericho, will you face Ishii in 2 weeks? Chris Jericho said, yes. Yes, I will. Okay. It was time for a big return after this because Britt Baker was back on Dynamite. And something isn't really clicking here, and I don't know what it is. Now, she was facing Penelope Ford too, who again has come back from an absence of her own. And we do need to give her more plaudits because she was away for a long old time, but she's barely missed a beat. It was alright though, and mostly a way to get Britt Baker a win. But when you took the whole thing and the atmosphere, once again, like totally fine, totally enjoyable, totally entertaining, but it just kind of feels like it needs more, and we're not getting more. I don't know why. Britt was able to get a sling blade though when Ford grabbed her and threw her into Tina the Turnbuckle when she did that handspring elbow thingamajig. I always enjoyed that. It's very athletic. Penelope then hit her Matrix Cutter, which is a great name for a move, but only got a 1-2 when she missed a moonsault, so Baker came back with the neck breaker, which was another breaking of necks of this episode of Dynamite, so somebody's got it out for necks. Britt then posed with the lockjaw glove, which you cannot do in 2024. Do not overuse that D-pad because Penelope Ford was able to take her med pack, and eventually she snuck back in there and she applied the Muta-lock. Now, it turns out she needs to probably apply that a little bit better because Britt Baker did some wiggling and jiggling and she reversed it into the lockjaw. Tap out win. Now, Serena Deeb just walked out after this and looked at Britt Baker, so Britt Baker looked at her, so I presume we are going to do that match. And I do understand this, before Britt took another absence, we were teasing this was the direction, so why not just go back to it? It just doesn't feel like there's a big enough reason for it though, so I'm going to do what I always do. The match is going to get an up, because again, that did establish what it was trying to do, but everything else here, including Penelope Ford's lack of direction, has to get her down. Like, they're all really talented, but we need more depth in the water glass. I don't know what that means. Hopefully you understand my point. I just drank fake water. When, well, we went from this into the most unhinged segment of the evening. For Renee was with Mina Shirakawa, who's finally made it back to AEW, and she was very excited because after Mariah May does defeat Anna Jay at the weekend, they can finally have their champagne celebration. Harley Cameron then walked in. I won't lie, I popped. If you've been watching her on Collision over the last few months, she is genuinely one of the most entertaining things about all of AEW. As Mina was about to drink from this glass though, she just grabbed it, drank it and went and spat it over the floor when she said that some people say that Mina Shirakawa is the Japanese version of Harley Cameron and Harley Cameron is the Harley Cameron of America. Or something. Therefore, she challenged Mina for a match of the weekend too, where they can go tit for tit, and may the breast women won. Then they both started jiggling, I'm not kidding, that's what they did, and wiggling, and before Renee Paquette cracked up, she calmed them both down, because this was getting out of control. So Harley Cameron just does not care, and she gets weirder and weirder, and Mina is just very watchable too. This is the kind of stuff I want from AEW. This is wrestling to me, like I say. It was totally bonkers, but it made me laugh, and it made me feel warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum, because it entertained me. I was also facepalming like, oh my gosh, this is totally crazy, but there ain't nothing wrong with that. And now I want to watch the match. Not everything has to be super serious 9,000. And even though this lasted about 8 seconds, I'm giving it an up. Swerve Strickland versus Lio Rush was next too. This was great stuff. They just went bonkers to begin with as well, as you flip, I flip, we all flip. When Leo's like, wait a minute, I'm the heel, and he raked Swerve's eyes. That's really smart, because now he can't see. Swerve then went after the tum-tum, but Lio was able to get out of the way of the stomp when he threw Strickland to the outside. But that was a bad idea, because Swerve murdered his face. What? And they did this crazy spot on the announce table when they were just jumping everywhere, and that ended with a Poison Rana. And I was like, of course it ended with a Poison Rana. In 2024, if you were going to make a list of the most popular moves, number 1 would be the Poison Rana. Rush then hit this awesome Splash of the Frogs for a 1-2-ooh, but Swerve was able to reverse the stunner, when from nowhere, Lio hit the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up, and he would have won, but Prince Nana was like, excuse me, referee, he's holding onto the ropes. I do believe that's cheating. For some reason that just worked so well though, I don't even know why, I just think they have great chemistry, which is when Lio Rush was like, fine, I know what I'm gonna do. Another Poison Rana. Swerve was like, no, I'm sorry, I've been through the last few months. There's been way too many of these. He reversed it into big pressure, and he got the 1-2-3. I've accidentally gone through that way too fast. If you have 12 minutes today, go and watch it, it rules. Swerve then grabbed the microphone too and was like, man, ever since I've come back, everybody is trying to use my equity to get themselves over, and that's perfectly fine because I'm Swerve Strickland and I'm the best. He will just remind everybody who he is, and while he does accept the Bobby Lashley match at Full Gear, he wants a fight right here, right now in Stamford, Connecticut. They were actually in Bridgeport, and all the fans started to boo. I think they were saying boo earns. Thankfully for him, the Hurt Syndicate were right behind the curtain, so they came out instantly, but they had a plan. Shelton Benjamin was not with them, so once MVP had cut his promo, Shelton attacked from behind, and these three laid waste to both dudes, including Prince Nana. They did come across as very intimidating. They also used Barry Barricade just to show you what they can do. And listen, man, the Pain Clinic, or whatever you want to call them, are one of the best things in AEW. And if wrestling is about getting you excited for a match at a big show, I cannot wait for Swerve versus Bob. I think it's going to be an underrated gem. All of this is getting it up. We then had another interview with Renee, which was a little bit nuts, but it was with Jamie Hayter, who was like, well, ever since I have come back, I have righted a lot of wrongs, but there's one more I've got to do. We never found out what it was going to be because the screen went black and we cut to our second return video package for Julia Hart, because we had another one on Collision. Now you should watch both of these because they are flubbed up. You got like arrows of death and blood. Brody King is there and the hat is back and it's all dark and spooky wooky. But it did make me go, man, I am ready for Julia to return. And I guess that's going to be sooner rather than later. So I was just a fan of this, as I was of the main event. It was the House of Black versus FTR to see who was going to Full Gear to be in the 4-way tag team match. Now this was absolutely brilliant, but also over the weekend, the Outrunners won their match and they are going to the pay-per-view too. I shall let you into a little secret about my life. When that happened, I made a lot of noise like a goat giving birth. I shouldn't have said that. This also had the extra sauce because either team would have won. That would have been totally fine. And of course, I just want to say congratulations to Malachi Black for coming back after his retirement that apparently happened last week. I don't want to be that guy, but sometimes the internet is stupid. I cannot stress how good this was either, because these two teams just have all the chemistry in the world. And of course, Private Party we're watching on. Now, I'm sure the story reason is because they were scouting the teams. Screw that, they know good wrestling. Dax Harwood then got chopped down by Brody King. When Cash Wheeler tagged in, he was like, man, I can sort this guy out. But he was totally wrong because King splatted both of them. This is the way that we should beat Brody King. Nobody can ever get him down ever. Malachi then decided he would boot some people in the face when he did that whole thing where he sits down and he's like, dare you hit me or dare you not? This is a puzzle and I'm in your brain. If that happened to me, I'd be like, I don't know what's going on right now. Maybe I'll just go home. Wheeler wasn't up for that at all though, so he got back in there. And after playing cat and mouse and FTR got back on top, they did the sitting gimmick too, which I assume for Malachi Black is the ultimate insult. Cash and Dax then went full tag team here because they just cut Malachi off, and once again, they're so good at this. And look, you knew what was coming a mile away. It is tag team wrestling, because eventually Brody King went, and he made sure his hand was at temperature. Hot tag. Now, he just hit all the shoulder tackles here, I mean every single one of them, when he just decided he was going to throw people around, so he did that too. We then got this great moment as well, because he was going to give Cash a superplex, but Dax was able to save him from that, because they are best friends, but all of a sudden Dax Harwood was doing bomb of powers. I've said it once, I'll say it twice, I'll say it 3 times. This was so damn good. Malachi felt left out, so he did his moonsault to the outside, which always looks amazing as well. When Brody King decided, if anyone's doing power bombs, it is me. When the tag klaxon went off, and all these 4 guys were fighting, and it ended with Brody King doing this death dive. It was devastating. The fans then started to chant fight forever, which I did agree with, or just fight for the allocated time you have on this episode of Dynamite, when FTR was able to block Dante's Inferno, and damn it, they hit the Shatter Machine and they would have won, but at the last second, Dax Harwood got pulled out the ring. Damn, Cash was offended by that, so he got involved when FTR was able to hit a spike pile driver. And I was like, damn, this match has had everything, apart from Harley Cameron challenging one of them to a breast fight. Don't get mad at me, that's what happened. Through all of this too, Brody King had just maxed out his MP, so he got back in the ring, and he hit so many death lariats, but Dax Harwood kept kicking out. King's face was a picture. He was like, why won't you die? He then remembered how bodies work though, so he picked up Dax and he choked him, and eventually Harwood's brain must have said to him, hey, if I can't breathe, I can't wrestle, and I'm not gonna be alive anymore. So he passed out, and can you believe it? The House of Black won. They are going to the pay-per-view. AEW totally get the deal too, because all these guys shook hands afterwards, because nobody thinks the House of Black are bad guys. They're just super duper cool, and of course Private Party were like, oh, what's going to happen? So I was a huge fan of this, because not only was it a great match, but we put the tag team titles of the tag team scene into the main event, and that should be a plan for 2025, like a fire under its ass. This really could have been the highlight from the show, apart from Harley and Mina. That really was totally nuts. It absolutely gets an up, and you should go and watch it. Which brought us to the end of AEW Dynamite, and listen, now that we do have a pay-per-view in our sights, it certainly is a bit tighter than it has been, but there's just a few story things that we do need to sort out, but that's fine. We get so many episodes in a year, and ultimately I was sports entertained up. Now, of course, let me know how wrong I am in the comments below. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the video on the screen, which is ups and downs from Monday Night Raw, to get all my opinions on wrestling. And please do support the show as much as you can, because it means a lot to me. Otherwise, you mean a lot to me too, and I'll see you soon.